Well, it is Tuesday, the Tuesday edition of A Daily Walk, and we're continuing through the week here in the 15th chapter of 1 Corinthians. Paul is talking about a subject that is so important, and that is the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And I want you to know something, that the resurrection of Jesus sets Jesus apart from every other leader who has ever come or gone. The remains of Buddha are still buried. Muhammad, there's a tomb for him. Charles Darwin, he's buried. And so many others. And yet the grave of Jesus is empty. It's a historical fact. It sets him apart. That is, when you look at the religions of the world, and there are several determining factors, but one that stands above them all is Jesus is alive. We don't serve a dead guru. We serve a risen Savior who is alive and well. And it's a historical fact. And so we stand upon that today. And Paul was reminding the Corinthians of how important it was to remember the resurrection. And he's citing the various times when Jesus appeared after his resurrection. He appeared to Cephas. He appeared to the 12 disciples together, collectively, more than once. He continues now to speak about the resurrection, picking up in verse 6. And he says, after that, he was seen by over 500 brethren at once, of whom the greater part remain to the present, but some have fallen asleep. Paul said, if you're looking for eyewitness testimony, now this is decades after the resurrection. Paul said, hey, did you know he was seen by 500 witnesses? All had the eyewitness testimony of seeing Jesus resurrected from the dead. And in fact, he said, a lot of them, they're still alive. Some of them have fallen asleep, meaning they've died, but the majority of them, they're still alive. You can go ask them right now. They were there that day. It's not like everybody just had this, didn't understand what they were seeing. Imagine taking 500 people and bringing them into a court of law. They all saw the same thing. And you just had testimony after testimony after testimony, 500 witnesses with a 2-minute testimony of what they saw, the resurrected Jesus. I mean, you'd have the most lopsided trial in all history because the evidence is in. Paul said, they're still alive. Go ask them. They're right here. You talk to so-and-so. Talk to them. They'll tell you. They were all there. They saw Jesus alive. It's undeniable. There have been many throughout the years, throughout the centuries really, who have sought to disprove the resurrection. But the resurrection is the best known fact in history. You can't, to deny the resurrection of Jesus, you'd have to deny, there's more evidence for the resurrection of Jesus than there is of George Washington crossing the Delaware. I mean, there's just, it's a historical fact, and we believe it. And Paul points out there's 500 witnesses plus. I mean, you could see and ask eyewitness accounts. But there's more. He said in verse 7, after that, he was seen by James, then by all the apostles. Now pause there for a moment. There are several men in the Bible with the name James, followers of Jesus. There was, of course, James and John, who were brothers. John, who wrote the Gospel of John, and others. But then there was another individual by the name of James, who was actually the half-brother of Jesus. Half-brother meaning that Mary and Joseph had more children. Two of those men are mentioned, Jude, who wrote the second to last book of the Bible, and James, who wrote the epistle of James that we have in the New Testament. And James and Jude, Jesus' siblings, did not believe initially that he was the Messiah. In fact, if you read through the Gospels, you'll find that there were occasions when they thought he was beside himself, thought that he had lost it, and they came to bring him home so he could get some rest. On another occasion, when the feast was taking place, his brother said, why don't you go up if you're the Messiah? Why don't you go show him that you're, the Christ? And kind of making fun, if you would. They did not believe that he was the Messiah until he had risen from the dead. And what's fascinating is Paul alludes to another revelation of the resurrected Jesus to his half-brother, who formerly did not believe, but believed. And when James saw the resurrected Savior, if you go to the book of Acts, you'll find that James actually became really the leader in the early church there in Jerusalem. He was really the one that people spoke to and made decisions, and he was known for prayer and intercession. I believe they called James camel knees historically because he spent so much time on his knees praying that there were calluses like that develop on a camel's hide, if you would. And James also wrote his epistle. And when James writes this epistle, it's amazing how humble the introduction is. He doesn't open his epistle by saying, hey, by the way, this is James. You know which James I'm talking about? The brother of Jesus. I mean, he didn't say that. He just called himself a humble bondservant because he had seen the resurrected Lord, and it changed his life. Formerly, he was a skeptic. He didn't fully believe until he understood that Jesus rose from the dead, and he was never the same. And I've found that when someone truly takes hold of the resurrection of Jesus Christ as a historical fact, what it does is it validates everything that Jesus said. It proves it. It proves everything he said about sin, everything he said about salvation, everything he said about heaven, and everything he said about hell. So when somebody who's a skeptic gets hold of the facts and the reality, and the Spirit of God bears witness and reveals them, opens their eyes, like James, their life is never the same. They become people of prayer. They become people of spiritual leadership. Their life is just completely altered. And that was the story of James. But he wasn't only seen by James. Paul then finally says in verse 8, he was seen by all of the apostles. Now, there was more than one occasion when Jesus appeared to the apostles in the Gospels. As I said earlier, there were moments when he would show up and then he would disappear. And then he would show up and then he would disappear. All of that leading up to his final ascension. And all the apostles saw the resurrected King. And the word apostle means one who is sent out to represent another. That reality of the resurrection was the catalyst, was the fuel to go out and preach the gospel. They knew that it was true because they saw Jesus resurrected from the dead. And the apostles, almost all of them, went to their death, dying martyrs' deaths because they proclaimed the resurrection of Jesus Christ. They went everywhere and declared what was undeniable, that Jesus was indeed alive. And what was the message they preached? The death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. How could they not preach the truth when they had seen him? Friend, I pray that the resurrection of Jesus Christ will make all the difference in your life today, and that you would proclaim that wherever he sends you. God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow.